We're live.
Hola, amigos. ¿Cómo estás? Bienvenido a Miami.
All right, all right, all right, all right. Monday night, and have we got a show for you? I got to tell you, I really, if you had me, if you said to me, out of all the times doing this show, let me lower the volume here 1 minute. Jesus, if you said to me, out of all the years doing this show, who the craziest person was we ever interviewed, immediately, I would say Martin Bayerle.
He's the
I have my
man.
moments. I
You
have my
have your
moments.
But it has been some time since we've had you on.
4 years. I can't believe it's been 4 years.
Time
And
flies.
we prefaced a couple weeks ago to tell everybody to watch the show called Billion Dollar Wreck. And I got to tell you, I thought it was a fascinating story. It was a fascinating series. I was very hurt that it ended, and it like a train. It just hit the wall, and I'm like, oh.
I got to tell you, we have people that have been part of other shows, and a lot of times you name the show, and they're like, oh, I don't remember that show. What show? That's not the case when we say Billion Dollar Wreck. Everybody on the chat's going, I love that show. I can't believe it didn't come back.
So Martin is an esteemed salvage diver, just a great guy, and he has the rights to the RMS Republic, which sank out in the Atlantic there, somewhere underwater.
Wait a minute. We don't have the rights. We own the ship.
Oh,
And we own the
right.
cargoes. A big difference between rights and ownership.
Okay, he owns the whole ship.
Because new people are going to be in here, give your synopsis of the RMS Republic, how it came to be where it is, and what led you to today.
Well, I used to own scuba diving shops in Brooklyn, New York, so that was my field of expertise. So I came into some money in 1978 as a result of an antitrust suit that I filed against the good part of the scuba diving industry for price fixing and conspiracy. I won that case. That was Brooklyn Diver Supply versus Scuba Pro, NASDS, and a few other diving companies, Decor. But I won that suit. I got $280,000 in 1978, which was a decent amount of money, probably well over $1 million today. And I'm a young man. I'm 28 years old. And I said, well, what am I going to do with my $280,000? I said, I reached the peak in my dive shop. And that's what I did for a living, taking people out scuba diving, looking for wrecks. And I said, I had the peak of my dive shop. I had the peak of my mail order business, which got me the money. So why don't I play a little bit? I figure I'll go look for this. Well, actually, there were two choices. The first was open up a Caribbean dive resort down in St. Eustatius, sometimes known as Station, the French West Indies. And I would have done that if the resort that I was looking at, the Golden Rock Resort, was on the Caribbean side of the island. Unfortunately, it was on the Atlantic side, which was always rough and not conducive to a dive resort. A dive resort for my business in New York, when diving is seasonal, a Caribbean dive resort in the winter to drag all my customers down there would have been a lot of fun and profitable. But I said that deal fell through. So what was my other choice? Well, I knew there was this big wreck out there, the RMS Republic. I know it had been talked about in the diving circles. I know many people had tried to find her. She was known to be out near the Andrea Doria someplace. So I had my money. I folded up my shops in New York. I had actually 3 shops at one point. Moved to Martha's Vineyard, opened up a little shop called Martha's Vineyard Scuba Headquarters. Hired my good friend at the time, Steve Belinda, who ran charters to the Andrea Doria frequently. So I had an experienced captain and an experienced crew. And he provided some Andrea Doria divers. And I had my other divers from Martha's Vineyard. And we went out in search of the elusive Republic. The first day or two out there, we went to the official position where the U.S. government put the Republic, where the British Hydrographic Office put the Republic. We used a Westmar SS 500 side scan sonar, which was then newly released to the commercial market. Formerly, side scan sonar was a classified technology used for submarine hunting, but now it's been released to commercial use. So SS 500, the Westmar, was one of the first ones out there. I acquired one of those, went out, and I said, well, let's go out and find the Republic. So we went to the first area, spent about a day there, and there's nothing there. Although on the chart, do you see that on my screen, or is that on your screen? Okay.
No, but you should be able to share it with me.
That was just a pop-up for my system. In any event, we went out to the first location, and there was nothing there, even though that's the official location, Republic. And then we went out to my secondary search area. I had 2 Coast Guard reported positions, the Coast Guard boats that were involved in the Republic's tow. The Republic was in a serious collision. She left New York January 22nd. She was in a collision in the early morning hours of the 23rd of January, and she sank at 8 p.m. January 24th. But she was under tow while being towed back to New York. She was considered unsinkable. There's no reason to remove anything from an unsinkable ship. In fact, you can see these pop-ups are gonna.
No,
right,
they're not popping up on
there.
our screen.
Okay, well, I'm okay. In any event, we went out we stayed out for 4 days, 3.5 days, and we went to the location where the Coast Guard's vessels say she sank. One said she sank here, another one says she sank here. Both agreed on the 40 fathom line. They're about 6 miles apart, but both agreed on the 40 fathom line. So we went to position 1, and we ran a mowing the lawn pattern with the side scan from position 1 to position 2, and over the 40 fathom mark. And exactly midway between the 2 reported positions, we hit this large underwater obstruction, and the water was glass flat that day, and there were plumes of oil coming up. And there are a lot of wrecks in the North Atlantic, and the plumes of oil threw us off because Republic was a steam-powered vessel, powered by coal. But of course, any steam-powered vessel had bunkers for lubricating oil. You know, you have all this machinery, and the oil is required to lubricate, and apparently the lubricating oil bunker had rusted through by that point in time, and there were these plumes of oil coming up, and since it was glass flat, it was as if the wreck was beckoning. So we had 4 teams. The dive boat captain's team makes the first dive. They set the hook, and then I was in the second team. No, was I in the second? Well, second. I was in the second team. No, I was in the third team. My second team went down and didn't make it all the way to the bottom because it's kind of hairy at 240 feet to the wreck, 270 feet of water. They didn't make it down, and then my buddy and I made it down to the bottom. And I'm familiar with the old diving saying there are old divers and bold divers, but there are no old bold divers. They say the same for aviation pilots. So I decided to hang near the anchor line and see what I can feel. And of course, what you're looking at is the old expression: you're seeing the side of an elephant in a dark room, and you're touching it, and you can't really figure it out what it is because it's so large. In any event, the first team did identify, but they didn't bother to tell me. And then Captain Steve Belinda decided to vacate the site quickly. We were scheduled for another day of diving. He didn't permit us to dive the second day to make the positive identification, although I know his crew did make the positive identification. He just didn't want to tell me about it. So we had to wait until 83. That was 1981. We had to wait until 83 when I chartered another commercial diving company out of New Iberia, Louisiana. There was the not underwater completion team. Well, it was fellow was a Cuz Doherty, who's a very colorful Cajun character from New Iberia, Louisiana. His famous quote was, "Boy, if you're waiting on me, you're backing up." You know, it's so in any event, he made the positive identification with a bandit dive. I didn't know about it. Fortunately, he had hired one of my divers from the first trip as a safety diver, and he was more loyal to me than he was to Cuz. Let me know, and we had a meeting with Cuz, and I think it was a Fairport diner up in Massachusetts. and a friend of mine who was licensed to carry had a 44 Magnum under his jacket, and we were sitting down with Cuz, and we just casually let his jacket fall open, and Cuz decided to give me all his artifacts that he recovered, White Star Line plates, and we didn't threaten him. I guess he took it as an implied threat. In any event, we then filed in 1981. I filed on a unidentified, wrecked, and abandoned steam vessel or vessel. I don't even think we called it a steam vessel. 1983, we changed the title of the case to the RMS Republic. So that's how we found the wreck. Over the years, the U.S. Department of Justice sued us for a decade, and we beat them in court finally. And there's a reason for that, and hopefully we'll be able to get into that. We do beat the U.S. Department of Government, the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. government had claimed, they filed an intervention in our case claiming all the gold on board. And when they filed their claim, I said, wait a minute, if you do any research, there's a Navy money on board. That would be the U.S. government's. But then there's this Russian gold or French gold, depending on the sequence of title. The French banks were promoting a Tsarist Russian loan. So the U.S. government didn't own, as far as I knew at the time, all of the gold, but I was surprised to see why they claimed all of it. We subsequently figured out that they did own all of the gold through a subrogated interest. Now we get into the if everyone's ready to go to bed, I'll put you to sleep.
Go.
But okay, let's get into some serious history now. In 1904, Japan attacked Russia at Port Arthur. It was called the Russo-Japanese War. It was a secret attack, as if the Japanese would perform a secret attack on another country's naval interests. But Japan attacked Russia at Port Arthur, and that started the Russo-Japanese War. The Tsar had most of his fleet, the Baltic fleet. He had this fleet bottled up in Port Arthur, so he sent his Baltic fleet around the globe, basically, from his Baltic port to help or assist in the war in the Tsushima Straits. By the time the Russian fleet got there, the Japanese were waiting for them and destroyed the fleet. So Russia effectively lost the war. They petitioned for peace, and Teddy Roosevelt handled the Portsmouth Peace Conference in September of 1905, and he got a Nobel Prize for that. But in any event, when you fight wars, what do you need? This is in a sense very topical today. You need money to fight a war. You need allocations of funds to pay your soldiers and to get new ships and what have you. So Russia arranged in 1904, once she was attacked, she arranged for a $150 million loan from primarily French financiers and French banks, and it was only a 5-year loan. So it started in 1904, it was payable, the last payment was May 14th, 1909. That's new style, that's the Gregorian calendar, that's right. Russia at the time was on the Julian calendar, which would have made it May 1st, but according to the Gregorian calendar, our calendar was May 14th when the final payment was due. So like any good Ponzi scheme, if you owe money, what do? You borrow more money to pay off the old investors. And since the 1904 loan was coming due, it was a substantial amount. $150 million in 1909 was a phenomenal amount. Russia arranged for what they called the conversion loan. It was a 1909 loan, and it was for $240 million. It was a 50-year loan, so they didn't have to worry about paying it for a long time. $150 million of the 1909 loan was used to repay the 1904 loan coming due. Again, it was coming due May 14th. And the $90 million difference was for Russia's 1909 budget. So remember, this is January 22nd. The 1904 bonds were convertible. There was a time frame in which they were convertible. The 1904 bondholders got a preference on 1909 bonds. The period was January 13th through the 22nd. The reason why that's important, of course, we know the Republic sailed on the 22nd. And even the timing is important. The Russian bond, the 1909 bond, closed January 22nd, but it closed European or Paris time. So let's say 3 p.m. Paris time would be 9 a.m. New York. So by the time 9 a.m. New York rolled around, the Republic sailed for 3 p.m. So you have 6 hours, enough time to load the money from the sub-treasury a few blocks away from the White Star Line Pier. But the redemption period was January 13th to the 22nd. So if you had 1904 bonds, you can redeem them. You had a preference to redeem them for 1909. Now, since the 1904 bonds were due at maturity, very close to May, you can get your $25 million in 1904 bonds. You can exchange them for $25 million in 1909 bonds. But since the 1909 bonds had not matured, you can get those at a discount. And the discount was 0.88. So $25 million in 1904 bonds would get you $25 million face value in 1909 bonds for $22 million, but you're entitled to a full payment. So you had to get the balance of $3 million in cash. That's where the rumor started all along with the Republic. Always was $3 million, $3 million. No one could ever figure out why it would be $3 million. So the Russian State Bank, since they had to pay $3 million on January 22nd, what they did is they borrowed the $3 million from a New York bank, and we now believe, this is the newest research, we now believe that they borrowed it from J.P. Morgan. And we've just asked J.P. Morgan, will you confirm this? And they've, of course, come back to us that they neither confirmed nor denied our conclusions. And our J.P. Morgan research is very, very tight. So the point of the matter being, we know how the transaction operated. It was exchange of 1904 bonds for 1909. They got 25 million in 1909 bonds face value for 22 million, and they got 3 million cash because that was due and payable to that bondholder between January 13th and the 22nd. So that's one transaction, the $25 million transaction. The bonds were exchanged for 1909, and 1909 bonds were resold at New York. That gives us $22 million for the 1909 bonds, a $3 million for the borrowed difference between what was owed in the 1904 bonds. So it's $25 million Russian State Bank shipment. Now, how do we know that? If you read my book, The Tsar's Treasure, 2013, I talk about the $3 million loan transaction, a 30-day loan. It was below the 30-day market rate. It was a 1.5% loan, 30 days, payable February 22nd. And in my book, my 2013 book, I identified two transactions that we acquired from the French banks. One was from Credit Lyonnais, and the other one was Societe Generale. There were instructions by the Minister of Finance in Russia to disperse to the state bank on February 22nd 5 million francs, 5 million francs from one bank, 5 million francs from another bank to the state bank. That's 10 million francs. That's roughly $2 million. And in my book, I say there's a third transaction out there. It may have been lost to history. Well, we've just recently come into the balance of that transaction. There wasn't one, there were two more transactions. And this is in the Russian State Bank research report on our website, lordsoffortune.com. There were two more transactions. One was for 500,000 francs. So that's 15 million francs. That's roughly $3 million. But even better yet, there was another transaction for 50,000 francs. 5,550,000 francs. Now, if you run the rate of exchange, the loan was for 1.5%, $3 million, 30 days. You add $3,750 to that. That's $3,350 payable on February 22nd. 15,500,000 francs at the rate of exchange of 5.17, which was the rate of exchange on January 22nd, is exactly $3,375. So we identified the borrower of the 30-day loan was the Russian State Bank. The Russian State Bank was also a redeeming agent for the 1904 bonds, and we suspect they may have sold those bonds directly to the U.S. government. So that's why the U.S. government claimed all the gold. If that wasn't the case, then what happened is, in 1934, when we recognized the Soviet Union, we have the Litvinov Agreement. In 1934, we had, well, let's backtrack a little bit. We have the 1917 Russian Revolution. So the Tsar sells bonds in New York. The New York bankers or the U.S. government buys those bonds. Then in 1917, the Bolsheviks take over Russia. The Russian Revolution. What do the Bolsheviks say? Bolsheviks say, since this is, I could say, fuck you, essentially, to the Tsarist bondholders. They said, wait a minute, we're not going to pay the Tsarist debt. That wasn't organized by the people. That wasn't approved by the people. So fuck off. You know, you take your bonds and they're worthless. So, of course, the U.S. government bailed out. If they didn't already own the bonds, they bailed out the New York bankers. That's the information we have. Because the U.S. government, by the time we redeemed we settled with the Soviet Union on their outstanding debt in 1934. The U.S. government had outstanding $146 million in Russian securities that were, I think they call it on the books as unfunded.
So let me just ask you a question.
Yeah.
So
you're getting more than 2 words in.
I know. So far, I'm not.
That's too many.
Answer these questions kind of quickly. Where did the RMS depart from?
Departed from New York to Gibraltar.
And we now believe, well, we believed from the get-go, it was carrying money from New York to Russia?
Yes. What you find at Gibraltar are 2 fleets simultaneously. The U.S. Atlantic Fleet, better known today as the Great White Fleet, but you also found the entire Russian Baltic Fleet at Gibraltar at the same time.
What caused the Republic to sink?
Well, she was, I think, 15 hours out of New York and in a dense fog in the New York shipping lane. The area between Ambrose and Nantucket Light was called the 42nd Street of the Atlantic. She was outbound, and it's a traffic lane. There's outbound traffic, there's inbound traffic. So she was outbound in the traffic lane, and about 5:40 a.m. on the 23rd, she was hit on the port side. Yes, that's right. On the port side by the inbound Italian liner SS Florida. So in a dense fog that she contacted almost a 90-degree perpendicular strike, entered the engine room. That caused all the water to flood the engines. They had to shut down the boilers. So she was left with the Republic was left with any steam or motion capability. And in a dense fog, it took somewhere around 26 hours or so for the Baltic to even find the wreck, find the Republic, knowing that she's in the same general area because of the fear of running into her because of the dense fog.
What happened to the crew?
All right, the crew was there was a salvage crew that they kept on board on and off, and they switched off and off, on and off on that. And eventually all the passengers and all the crew were transferred, well, most of the crew were transferred to the Florida, which was still afloat, and that limped back to New York. Then the Baltic, actually there was 2 transfers, to the Florida first. Then when the Baltic arrived, all the passengers, or most of the passengers of the Florida and the Republic's crew were transferred to the Baltic. Baltic was another White Star liner. Now there is, if you look at and all this information is on our website, if you look at the bills of lading that White Star Line used to produce, and they say this quite specifically, they said in the event of a collision at sea or an accident at sea and the vessel's at risk, other company vessels may assist in the salvage or in the saving of the one vessel, but that vessel will also be entitled to a salvage award. So, but it's in their own bill of lading. So the White Star Line had incentive to rescue the passengers and to salvage or use on its own resources to recover Republic.
This was a cruise line too, correct? It wasn't like a steerage ship. It wasn't something just carrying.
No, this was an RMS, Royal Mail steamship. She was qualified to carry the mail. She was considered the flagship of White Star Line's Boston Mediterranean service. She was considered the millionaire's ship. So at the time, there were no such things really as cruise ships. So she was a passenger liner that carried passengers from the Mediterranean, from Europe to the U.S.
So no one died.
Yes. Approximately 6 people died in the original collision. 2 initially, Mrs. Lynch and Mr. Mooney. Mr. Mooney was the wealthiest man in the Dakotas. Mrs. Lynch was the wife of Eugene Lynch, who was a prominent alcohol store owner, basically, or distributor up in Massachusetts. So, and then three crew members on the Florida died who were in the folks.
Okay, we all think about shipwrecks, the Titanic, a bunch of people go down and die, but this was not that mass casualty type situation that would, that could have happened.
Yeah, which is a good thing for us, because one of the arguments for leaving the Titanic in place is the large number of lives that were lost. Here, we don't have to deal with the robbing graveyard issue. I mean, there were still 2 bodies left on board, but they were most likely decomposed shortly after the collision.
Now,
So in addition to the gold that is on the ship, and you have a bunch of millionaires that were on the ship. So I'm assuming that there's safe and or a vault or something. All that personal wealth is down there too.
Yes, in fact, the what after the collision again, everyone thought the vessel was unsinkable, and the first unsinkable vessel for White Star Line. Actually, it was an earlier one, the Atlantic up in Nova Scotia in the 1880s, I believe. But the Republic was considered unsinkable, and she sank while under tow back to New York, and the passengers were instructed. They say lock your belongings into your cabins, and you'll have access to your belongings once we tow the ship back to New York. So there was no of course, anyone, who has, I'm sure there are some millionaires who pocketed whatever they could just in case, but most of the passengers are believed to have left their belongings on the ship so that they could get them later. Once the passengers were on deck, they were not allowed to go back to their staterooms. The staterooms were locked by the stewards, and no passenger was allowed once they were on deck to go back to the staterooms to retrieve valuables.
Did White Star ever have any ships that were unsinkable? They made a claim for every one of their ships to be unsinkable, but they all sank.
Actually, the term that they used at the time, and they used for Titanic, it never claimed Titanic was unsinkable. They used the exact term that they used for Republic, practically unsinkable.
Oh, we don't think it's going to go down, but
that's right. Anyone who works with
hit something, it's not going down.
Another question.
Well, they all had double bottoms, and they all had multiple bulkheads, and they were, if I think two, possibly three of the watertight compartments were flooded, the ship could still make progress. Right. But the Republic, the Republic was in a sense very similarly hit as Titanic, although the collision was perpendicular. The Republic had forward momentum, so the Florida bounced back and forth to the end until she pulled out, so that she ruptured a whole bunch of plates beyond the original collision area, which caused the flooding aft, which is very similar. Yeah, which is very similar to Titanic with the iceberg, the same thing, hitting and then rupturing plates beyond. Now, the key thing here, Republic was the largest ship in history to sink to her day, succeeded only by Titanic. British law requires an inquiry when there's a loss of life, certainly the loss of the largest ship in history. But the problem with an inquiry is that you would have to identify, it's by British law and it's prescribed, you would have to identify all the cargo owners, you would have to provide manifests for the cargoes, and you would have to put people under oath describing, the incident, what caused it. But the British Board of Trade never held an inquiry for Republic. The official excuse was, well, we couldn't subpoena the crew members of the Florida, and therefore any inquiry that we have would be of an ex parte character, meaning we're the only ones that show, and it might be prejudicial to British interests. Now, that makes no sense whatsoever. If you're a lawyer, if we have a hearing and the other side doesn't show, we win. We only tell our story, and our story is a fact.
Were they assuming that they were going to be able to go down and get what was lost that they didn't?
Well, because if you read the accounts at the time, which are all on our website, the older research, rms-republic.com, all the salvage experts at the time said if it's beyond 100 feet or 130 at the absolute extreme, it's considered a total loss. The technology at the time was insufficient to conduct the recovery. Right. Now, once the Bolsheviks took over, no one's going to give the Bolsheviks Tsarist gold for bonds they repudiated. So, and therefore, the U.S. government took over. In fact, the ship is so placed in the Atlantic, it's directly in the outbound shipping traffic lane. Not on one end of the traffic lane, right in the center of the outbound shipping traffic lane. And I suspect the traffic lane was laid over the Republic to keep people off the wreck. So we have a constant monitor with ships traveling virtually every 20 minutes or 30 minutes over the site. When the government sued us, they tried like hell to say, we don't want them anywhere near the wreck. We don't want them on the wreck. Of course, we had Admiralty law on our side. And we argued with them for 30 years. Again, they said they owned all the gold. Now we know why, because when the Bolsheviks took over, they repudiated the Tsarist debt in 1934, the Litvinov Agreement. They said, all right, you have seized assets. We have seized assets. The Soviets said, take your seized Tsarist assets, apply to outstanding czarist debt. And since the U.S. government was a legitimate creditor by subrogation having these bonds, they paid themselves first. So they couldn't double dip on gold on the Republic.
Okay, so the $1 billion.
Very clever. I love this. The research is what I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you this question. In any of your research, were there any interviews or information acquired from any of the crew members as to what was on board? Was there any personal accounts?
You're going to love this. If you read the newspaper accounts at the time, all the crew members are specifically advised not to say anything regarding the Republic. Also, there was no official inquiry, but all the crew members ended up going to Liverpool and spending a month in Liverpool, presumably before the Board of Trade, to dig into what happened. But the public inquiry was suppressed. And of course, who was the famous politician, up-and-coming politician who ran the Board of Trade at the time in 1909? Famous British politicians.
Oh, British. Not Winston Churchill.
Yes, Winston Churchill.
Winston.
Winston Churchill was president of the Board of Trade. He would have been the one responsible to make the decision. In the House of Commons, that was the official explanation for no inquiry. Now, in 1912, the same issue was raised on the House of Commons. And was there an inquiry into the loss of the Republic? And almost verbatim, the same excuse. Well, we couldn't subpoena the crew members of the Florida, therefore it would be ex parte character and potentially prejudicial to British interests. What was prejudicial is if it had become public knowledge that the Tsar had lost this much money, because it would have caused the collapse of his regime and a panic on Wall Street.
But at no time. Okay, so we're talking.
Oh, wait. I want to get back to your answer. So contemporaneously, I'm sure the crew was put under the Official Secrets Act and they couldn't say anything. However, and this is a great part of the story. In 2009, the ship sank in 1909. So in 2009, the 100th anniversary, the sinking of the Republic was the first use of wireless distress signal, the Marconi telegraph for distress at sea. It became the world's first live media event. All right, because you had the wireless telegraphy on Republic calling other ships, and those messages were relayed to shore, what have you. So everyone was following what was happening with Republic. So at the 100th anniversary, and remember, the only rumor that existed was a $3 million rumor. So if you read my 2000 book, I talk about the $3 million rumor. If you watch $1 Billion Rick, I talk about the $3 million rumor. Nowhere do I mention the next amount. But in 2000, and I'll talk about that a little bit. In 2009, there was the 100th anniversary of the sinking. And Jack Binns' granddaughter, Jack Binns was a wireless operator. His granddaughter, he died when his granddaughter was 16, and they were very close. So his granddaughter is making a presentation. It's available on the net. It's included as part of our research. You can actually listen to it. She was making a presentation to a group of, and I'm being complimentary in a sense. I'm not being derogatory, to radio ham operators, nerds, if you will. A very select group of people who are really interested. In fact, they went so far as certain people played Republic, certain people played Sky Sconset, where the first radio message, certain people played the radio operator of the Baltic. So they had this big thing, and it was a worldwide event. So she's making a presentation below the select group of ham radio operators. And she starts making the presentation, and someone, of course, fortunately, was recording it. And she says, and I don't know, if the loss of $25 million had been made public, it would have caused the collapse of the Republic, of the Russian government. Now, I heard that in 2009, around the time she said it. I'm the expert. I said, shit, I can't use that. I have nothing to support it. That's why it's not in my book. It's not why, but I heard it. So in 2015, Virginia Lovelace is her name. She's a respectable doctor. She worked in Cornell for 25 or 35 years. Her husband is a renowned physicist. So this is a highly credible person who's getting firsthand information. That $25 million didn't come from me. It didn't come from any report whatsoever.
Came from my grandfather.
That's the only place it came from. So when I heard it in 2009, I said, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and I can't use that. If she had said $3 million, it would have been in my book. More confirmation. but it wasn't. I didn't mention. So I met her in 2015 when we filmed $1 Billion Wreck. And my first question, and I had forgotten about her 2009 presentation. It was 6 years early. I've completely forgotten about it. So I said, "Did your grandfather ever mention the cargo?" And she said, "No, he's never mentioned the cargo." Of course, she's talking to the treasure hunter, and I'm sure she made a promise to her grandfather never to reveal the secret. And when she made it in a spontaneous utterance, if you will, for the 2009 get-together of all these radio operators, probably a small room, maybe 10 or 15 people in the room, and she said it, and fortunately someone recorded it because it's on the net. You can listen to the recording. But in 2017, we developed the $25 million amount independently. The U.S. government was, all right, a little background. In September of 1905, $22 million was shipped out of New York, and it ended up in Paris. It was a secret shipment. It doesn't show up in the U.S. export reports. However, it does show up in French import reports as coming from the U.S., and it does show up in the Bank of France ledgers as U.S. gold coin coming from the U.S. That was probably a sub-rosa payment by Japan to Russia for this lands that Japan had seized during the war. And if that had been made public, the Japanese would have been really upset.
Sure.
But I'm sure Roosevelt made the argument, look, take the money that you still have in New York that you raised for war. Japan raised most of its war money in New York. The Russians raised all their money in Paris. So I'm sure the argument Roosevelt gave to the Japanese, so take the money you raised for war, apply it to peace. Give it to Russia. Russia saves a little face. They could never acknowledge the receipt of that money publicly. But it ended up in Paris, and Paris is where the Russian bankers are. So actually, we suspect that money was paid to the state bank. The state bank bought 1904 bonds because they were at a discount because Russia was losing the war. And those are the bonds that they redeemed in 1909 and sold at New York. So in any event, she makes this presentation. I asked her, and then we developed the $25 million amount independently in 2017 because the U.S. government was recalling $25 million. And their official excuse in 1909 was, we're assembling this money in preparation for Taft's inauguration, which makes no sense whatsoever. It's a cover story. It's like the cover story they had in September of 1905 for the 22 million shipment. They said the banks are recalling short-term loans to send money to the interior for crop payments. They didn't want to acknowledge this much gold was leaving the country because there was a fear of run on the banks that happened in 1907, which caused a major depression. So it was also questioned. That's another reason why we suspect J.P. Morgan was involved in the entire transaction. He knew the French bankers. He assembled the money that was used to purchase the Panama Canal payment in 1904, $40 million. He was essentially the government's banker, if you will. He suppressed.
He was the go-to guy for money.
That's right. He suppressed the 1907 run on the banks. He made money available. So he had a reason to suppress any public acknowledgement that this much money was leaving the country. But I think it was the New York Herald. It's in our Russian State Bank report, which is available on our website in the research section. The Russian where was I? The Russian State Bank research. The report, the cover story in 1909 was sending money to Washington. Was in preparation. The U.S. government was collecting money in preparation for Taft's inauguration, which makes no sense whatsoever. The New York Herald or the New York Times, no, New York Herald or New York Tribune. The site is in the report. They recognized for what it was, and they say specifically, no doubt in regard to gold exports. And another article that we have, Bradstreet says the change of money. The Wall Street notices what happens on the market. If money gets tight, there's a reason for it. So if money's leaving the country, it becomes harder and more difficult to borrow money in New York because it's not there, and the rates go up. So they need an excuse for why the rates go up. So in 1909, they said, well, they're shipping money to the interior for crops. Bankers were calling short-term loans. No, it was Japanese money they were calling. In 1909, it's the U.S. government itself, not banks, that are assembling money. That's why we suspect the U.S. government actually bought the Russian bonds. But if the banks bought it, that's fine too, because we know the New York government bailed out the banks that held Tsar's securities. So it all goes into the same pot. But right now, we're at the point of in discussions with J.P. Morgan to get the real facts out. Someone in New York loaned the state bank $3 million because we found the repayment. We know that Russian bonds were sold in New York during that week because we have Bradstreet that says the rates of money may be affected by the sale of new Russian bonds. To sell that many bonds in New York to affect the money market rate has to be a substantial amount. And we have the U.S. government assembling $25 million for Taft's inauguration. Obviously, another cover story similar to the one that they had that we proven for a secret shipment in 1905. So it's really, if you're a historian, you want to get into the details, get into the weeds, so to speak. Get your feet wet. There we go. There's an appropriate one. If you want to get your feet wet, the research is on our website, lordsoffortune.com. If you get there, you click on any of the menus and you bring to another section, you'll see another menu on the right that says research. The history is really neat. And of course, I make all my research available specifically for critical examination. That's why I'm here.
I got to say that I honestly, how do I put it? I feel that you're right. I think there could have been gold because I know we think that the government dove on that ship before you got to it, right? Wasn't there a story where they kind of may have got on there and may have removed stuff?
Well, first, if the government ended up getting it, they wouldn't have sued us, for their interest in the gold that's on the Republic. That's the first thing. Second, we have side scan sonars of the vessel. The vessel, I'm sure when she sank, she hit stern first, she splayed open, and the decks collapsed soon after she sank, because the ship is designed to hold water out. Once water is in the ship itself, it's sinking. There's no longer that external pressure to hold the decks or the sides of the ship together, and they'll spread out and the decks will collapse. And we also have recent side scans from 2021 and 2024. We did a photogrammetry survey, and the section of the wreck that we're interested in, that we have extensive research now on where the gold would have been stored, confirmed by the builder Harland and Wolff. They say, yeah, it's going to be in that section of the ship.
That
area of the ship is unexcavated and unexplored.
Is that?
There was an attempt reportedly in 1919 by British interests. That was an early report, but it was reportedly unsuccessful. Now, why is that date important? What's happening in Russia, the revolution? Any white Russians, Tsarist Russians, would have known the ship had gold on it, and they would have wanted that gold for counter-revolutionary purposes, but it was reportedly unsuccessful. Again, the technology to do this didn't exist until the 1950s and 1960s, and it's still U.S. government gold. So the only people, no one's going to get on that wreck without the U.S. government arguing with it, and that's exactly what they did with us. They argued with us, and they lost.
How close are you to actually getting back on that ship?
Well, we're in the process of raising money now. It's an expensive proposition. The total salvage will run about $35 million. We're going to need about $8.5 million to get to the gold. And of course, once we get to the gold, we can debt finance any amount we needed to recover what is now, if you run the numbers, over $5 billion melt value of the gold.
Right. Let me just ask.
So wait. Let me just get into the calculation here so everyone understands. $25 million Russian state bank shipment, gold. 800,000 U.S. Navy payroll, mixed coin, but let's figure it just on the gold value. Divide that by the price of gold at the time, $20.67, and you get troy ounces. Multiply the troy ounces by the current price of gold, $4,100 roughly, and you're well over $5 billion. That's the melt value. If you take the coin values on typically famous hoards will run 2x to 6x on average for the whole hoard. So we're easily we're easily in the $10 billion range, possibly more. Oh, and the thing this is only two transactions we identified. Remember, I said that the redemption period was January 13th through the 22nd, but the time on the 22nd was 9 a.m. And the French banks, we have newspaper reports saying the French banks, the syndicate banks that were responsible for the exchange of 1904 bonds for 1909, were still buying gold in New York right up to the 22nd.
Okay.
Which means beyond the 25 million, there may be more on board. In fact, we did the calculation. $146 million in 1904 bonds were exchanged for 1909 bonds. We've only identified 25. There could be a lot more money than what we've even identified.
And
Go ahead.
there was reason that they were keeping a lot of secrecy over this. I'm
Oh
just
yeah,
wondering if there wasn't
no
more.
official inquiry. The wreck's not on any chart, until I found it, and then they said, well, he knows the wreck's there, so we might as well put it on the charts. But it's just an empty spot on all the charts. One of the sources I looked at was anti-submarine warfare charts, where the Navy plotted every shipwreck along the East Coast to be used and they leveled all these ships. They wire dragged them so that they could not be used by enemy U-boats to evade sonar detection. Republic was not wire dragged. It's not on any chart. It's not in the anti-submarine warfare material that filtered down to public access. And why is that? It was classified. There's a simple explanation. They don't release classified information, the stuff they release to the public. There we go. I'm sorry.
I got one simple question. I want to talk about what's underwater, what we got to do to get there, and some specifics.
Okay.
Have you changed your idea of location? Because in $1 Billion Wreck, you felt that the money was in the purser's office, purser's safe, or you had a location that you were trying to, and right at the end you couldn't get to.
Yeah, the area between holds 5 and 6, that's now, numbered from fore to aft, is the target area. That's the area. That's the area that will contain the specie room, and the specie room is on a lower deck. And the reason why that will contain the specie room, because the U.S. Navy money, the $800,000, was available as of the 18th.
That's the same spot you were targeting before.
Yes.
Your target has not changed.
No, our target is the same.
They would put all this valuable. I mean, if they had Russian gold, if they had French gold, if they had U.S. military gold, that would basically be in that secure area.
Yeah. Well, no, the specie room was sufficient to hold the Navy money, the $800,000.
So you said
the Russian gold. The Russian gold. If we look at another similar salvage, the RMS Laurentic, which was a White Star liner that was mined off of Scotland or Ireland, off Ireland, in World War I. It was only in 132 feet of water, and she carried 5 million pounds sterling of gold in bars. 5 million pounds is roughly $5 on the exchange rate, so it's $25 million, the same amount of the Russian gold. And the reason why they put it in the Laurentic in the second-class baggage room, it was so much gold, it wouldn't occupy the specie room. Now, fortunately, the second-class baggage room is a deck up from the specie room, so we're going to hit the Russian gold early on and first before we get to the Navy cargo. But there's also going to have the mail room in that same section of the ship. That's going to have registered mail. Registered mail can be diamonds, anything of value. And that's why they always put, and the mail room, that's why they always put the specie room near the mail room, because of registered mail. They would take the valuables as registered mail and put them in the specie room, normally adjacent to the mail room. And we have an extensive research report, also in our research section, on the location within the vessel where these cargoes will be found. We've confirmed that with the builder, Harland and Wolff. They said, yeah, it's going to be in that section of the ship. And in 1987, when we were looking forward of Hold 5. We're in the wrong section. We ran into the wine locker. And we now have plans that say wine locker. We have plans that say second class baggage room. We still don't have plans for specie room, but we know, or mail room, but we know it's going to be in the same section of the ship.
The ship is how deep?
It starts at about 220 and it runs down to about 270 feet.
So what is it like working for a diver at that? So to get divers down there, working at that depth is extreme pressure and dangerous. And I know you did it before.
Cold.
And cold and dark. Do you drop a container that they work out of? Like,
well, that's called saturation diving. What we're going to do initially is eliminate the potential man from the deal. ROVs, remote operated vehicles, have advanced to the point what they call work-rated ROVs. They could virtually do everything a man can do and see better because they'll use sonar and advanced sonar and advanced imaging, something that the human eye can't see. Their manipulator arms are very agile now, and we don't put a man at risk. You know.
So you want to go down with remote vehicles? And
that's just initially to open the section of the ship until we see the gold. Once we see the gold, then we may want to bring in divers because each coin has a very high value, and you put a scratch on a very high value coin, and you can lose several $1,000s or more.
they salvaged this Central America. Was it USS Central America?
SS Central America.
SS Central America with the robots, and they did a great job with that
Yeah.
because it was so far underwater.
But the problem with not the problem, the facility with the Central America, it was a wooden ship. And what happens with a wooden ship after that period of time, the wood is decomposed,
right.
It disappears, and
Well,
you're just left with gold sitting on the bottom of the ocean that can
right.
pick up. I mean, that's why when they got down there, they have their little ROVs. Said, look at all the gold. We're going to have to remove several thousand tons of steel wreck.
Right.
We're going to have to remove several thousand tons of debris, detritus, collapsed deck to get to the gold chamber. And then it may take, depending on how the gold is found, the Russian cargo would be 625, 160-pound boxes.
So as you're
so getting back to my original, that's why they put it in the second-class baggage room. It's the same volume of gold. Laurentic carried bars, $25 million in bars. Republic carried $25 million in coins. So the volume is going to be about the same. It's too much gold for the specie room to hold, and the specie room already has the Navy money in it. And in addition, here's a very nice little side bit. There were no second-class passengers on Republic. They were boosted to first class, complimentary.
Okay.
Why?
So,
it makes the whole area second class more secure.
Yep.
Okay, but trying to answer a question about the ROVs going down, doesn't that limit? Now, number one, using the ROV as it's cutting through there, things could collapse even more. But even before you get to that point, don't you lose what I'm going to call mobility? That a person could be more mobile going into that ship than an ROV, or am I wrong?
You can't get into the ship because of the collapsed decks. The distance between decks now is about 18 inches.
Okay.
And that area of the ship is just debris, and you should have picked that up even from the $1 Billion Wreck show.
Yeah,
I mean, you can see it's just a pile.
Right, that's what happened. Your diver just couldn't go any further.
Well,
that's right.
And that leads me to this: if in comparison, diver to ROV, even with heated water, even with the nitrox or whatever mix you guys use, saturation dive, how long can a human being be down there, even with all the accoutrements, as compared to an ROV?
Well, an RV is unlimited, of course, unless you have divers, you would put them in what they call into saturation. They live in a vessel on the ship, on our salvage ship. They live in a vessel that's pressurized to the working depth, so they're constantly under pressure. They then a bell, which is mated to the habitat,
right,
also is at the same working depth, and it's just lifted up down to the ship and down to the wreck. Then the divers exit the bell. Right. Generally, they could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We rotated the saturation divers at about 6-hour shifts. Now, there's one decompression at the end of the job. It could be several days to a week to decompress them. But the advantage of saturation diving is when a diver descends, he takes in inert gas. That's nitrogen, oxygen, whatever he's breathing. That goes into solution. It goes into his tissues. Now, if you don't allow enough time for that gas to come out of solution without forming bubbles, you have what they call the bends. Yeah. And depending on where those bubbles form, can cause paralysis, blindness, even death.
Right.
Extreme pain is also a very common symptom. So the idea is there's only one maximum amount of time to saturate. In other words, your body will not take in any more gas at that depth. And therefore, there's only one maximum amount of decompression at the end to get that gas out of solution without forming bubbles. And that's why saturation diving is preferred when you have to have men working at the wreck site.
So they're under pressure the entire time that they're working.
That's right. And they only come out of pressure. Yeah, you're thinking of technical divers where they'll make a 15-minute dive, and then they'll have an hour and a half, 2 hours of decompression before they come out of the water, and they're only limited to about 15 or 20 minutes at that depth. But a saturation diver, because he's under saturation, he's already taken in all the nitrogen and inert gas, helium that he's going to take in. Usually it's a trimix, helium, oxygen, and nitrogen, a little bit of nitrogen. Trimix or heliox, simply helium and oxygen. Since there's the only amount that will enter his body, there's also therefore a maximum amount that has to leave his body before he can surface. But it takes time for that gas for him to off gas, if you will, for that gas to come out of his tissues and bloodstream without forming bubbles.
Okay, so now we're running out of time. I want to talk about what's happening from today forward. What is your plan and time frame of getting back to the wreck and trying to cut it? You know, what's your plan of attack from today, and when do you feel you'll be back on that wreck?
Okay, we're in money raising mode now. We have 3 offerings. We have a WeFunder offering where anyone can invest $100 and up, that we can raise up to $5 million there. We have 2 offerings for accredited investors. One's a convertible note, $25,000 minimum. And the other accredited investor offering is Abundancia, which is the Roman goddess of fortune, Abundancia LP limited partnership, and that's $1 million buy-in. So you know, if you're an accredited investor, all the information is the website. You have to fill out a questionnaire to qualify. If you're not accredited means generally you may have $1 million or more in assets, and you make over $100,000 a year, or is it? Yeah, $100,000. No, it's $200,000 a year, and $300,000 with your spouse to qualify as an accredited investor. But in any event, we raised money. We just had a major investment. We attended a major investment conference out in San Diego, and we have several people who've expressed an interest in funding the whole deal. The amount of money we're looking at to get to the goal, $8.5 million, is not a lot of money for some people. I mean, some people go to
so $8.5 million is what you need total to get down.
It's what we need to get to the gold. Right. And then, of course, once we see the gold, we can debt finance any amount needed.
Finance whatever you need.
Exactly. And and we have about $2.5 million right now. You know, that's
so
raised.
let's say you reach your target amount.
We're going to be there on June 1st, which gives us the 2026, which gives us the maximum weather window. The weather window in the North Atlantic there is basically June 1st to the end of August.
Oh, so you feel you will be there this June?
Oh yeah, and it will take us about 2 to 3 weeks to hit the gold.
Are you going to record? I'm sure.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, you know, once we're funded, then I'm sure all the stops come out from the media companies, and everyone wants to be on board.
Yeah, for sure.
Any plan for having live cameras on the ship?
Absolutely.
Do a live YouTube stream from it?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Because that would be awesome. Like I watch the research vessel Nautilus all the time, and they do dives and they broadcast that on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this, okay? With the ship was the show was great. You reach your target number. You're showing up. What's behind the scenes right now is history, or are these guys are they all already hitting around that when you're ready to go down, they're gonna do 6 more episodes. They're gonna do 10 more episodes.
I think they're gonna be hard pressed to not do more. You know, because they'll look very foolish if someone else picks it up. And they let it sit literally since 2000. For 10 years, they did nothing. Nothing.
So it was a good show. And if you're going back to this, it's going to be a good show again. Why wouldn't they want to?
Oh, it's going to be a much better show because everyone's tired of Oak Island finding wood and sniffing wood. You know, to see 625, 160-pound boxes of gold. Most people think of one box of gold as a treasure chest. Well, we got 625.
To be fair, Oak Island got a lot of wood and paper and stuff. So I'm just saying.
But they made their treasure. Their treasure was the audience that followed the show. They all made millions off of that show. That's the treasure there.
All right. Can you tell me your armament? What will you be going out there? How many ships? What will you be taking?
Initially, well, we're talking to Resolve Marine. Resolve Marine is one of the largest underwater contractors in the world. They have offices right here in Fort Lauderdale, and they have offices around the world. They're going to be our contractor, and they're going to use, initially we're going to use a barge with a crane that will be able to lift capacity. I think it's 400 tons or more. We're even considering one that will lift up to 1,400 tons in one grab. So it's going to take us, within 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to hit the gold, and then we'll proceed from there.
Okay. So you're going to go down with remote vehicles that are going to be able to cut
torches. That was my question too.
And
torch, grind. You know, grinders use a what they call a guillotine, a big position of guillotine that will chop, things into smaller pieces, and then the
Now-
crane or the grab will lift it and
Right, so
remove.
you're
And
gonna
we're working from the top down for diver safety, obviously.
Right.
So you're going to
Yeah.
utilize the crane as well, and the capacity to move the debris or the construction materials out of the way.
Once
So
you
exactly.
make it smaller, the crane pulls it out.
So you want to
Yeah.
start at the top and work your way down. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what we're going to do, and that preserves
Wow.
the value of the gold coin. It preserves safety for the divers that may ultimately be put on to do the coin retrieval. We have to see how the coins sit, whether we could do them in bulk, whether an RV can do them, or we're going to need divers.
You know
My
what?
guess is that we're going to need divers to do that. Yeah.
That brings up one of the most important questions of all in this scenario. Last time you were on the show, you made a promise.
Uh-oh.
Frank, can you turn your phone off? It just keeps going
It's
off.
not my phone.
It's mine. It's mine. I'm sorry.
I had to blame Frank because he's the mindless one that always does it. So last time on, and we got it recorded. All right. Now I understand that first coin that you find is going to be very, very important. And I wasn't asking for that. I'm asking for the second coin that comes up. So does that offer still stand, or was that just?
If I said it, repeat it to me when the goal comes up, and you got it. You're not going to get the first one. You're not going to get the first. You're not going to get the first one.
No, I'd like to review the tape on that.
You know what? I don't want the first one. I want the second one.
If I said that, I always stand by my commitments. If I said it, you'll get it.
I got to say this though. I mean, honestly, I'm not a big. I'm not going to say bad things about Oak Island, but I just never watched it. But there was very few shows I was enthralled with, and I'm telling you, as I was watching it, I liked it, and you ran out of time. The weather, the time, everything just kind of collapsed like the boat did. Whether it was weather, money, boom, you were pulled back like your hand was in the cookie jar and you got sucked back. I know you're going to say you're very confident that you can do it this time. So you're planning on being there for 3 weeks or longer, or
no, we're going to be there. We're going to be there for the entire summer once we hit the gold, of course, and it may take 2 to 3 seasons because the season is basically June through August to get all the gold out.
Right, you got only got a couple months down there.
Yeah. So it depends on how the gold is sited on the site. I'll be perfectly candid too that if the gold is concentrated, we are actually considering lifting the whole section of the ship, cutting it with diamond saws and taking that whole section, just lifting it up and going through it.
I think the main thing is to really discover your first 2 pieces of gold. Okay, the first one, like I said,
one
I know
for you and one for him. Yeah,
but that right there. See, because I got to tell you something. I'm sure people say, "Oh, you're nuts. He's never going to find." But I know that. But I also think that they said that to Mel Fisher. They said it to every other person out there who's ever had your tenacity in. Listen, Mel Fisher looked for it, and I'm just using him because he's the most famous one. But people had to say this guy's nuts. But then all of a sudden he finds it, and guess what? He wasn't so nuts. I want to see this come to fruition.
Absolutely.
To show that, man, you knew, you had this belief, you held to this, and you had a goal, and you reached your goal. It's like when Geraldo Rivera opened Al Capone's safe and he found nothing. I want you to open this Pandora's box, and I want you to find,
The good thing is that if everything else disappeared, we know the ship had pastors. We know the ship had wealthy. You're not coming out empty-handed.
That's right.
There's
not going to be dirty newspapers like in Al Capone's safe. Yeah.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
I just
from like 1976 now.
I want you to. I don't want to say prove it's there. I want you to get to it. I want you to be able to make this happen. I wholeheartedly hope that you can raise that first coin and say, we did it. Because
Absolutely.
this has been how many years that you've been hanging on and pushing forward. And really, I mean, you're very enthused about this. I'm sure you live this all the time, and I would love to see this come to be. I'd love to see it come to be. I'd love to see you get into that ship and find what you and I listen. You're saying that, and you're like, there's 400 billion. Listen, I just want you to find a small fortune at least. I want you to find what you believe is, at least something that's there.
You mentioned a very good point. I mean, in my book, my 2013 book, The Czar's Treasure, which is now in reprint in paperback, but in that book, and I tell this story. My first go around on Republic, I lost everything. I lost my home. I lost my marriage. I lost my freedom, which is indirectly related.
Right.
And I got out of that situation. I went back to school, got into the MBA program, finished the MBA program with honors, and opened up an internet service provider business in Morgantown, West Virginia. If I had opened up in New York, I'd be very wealthy today. But I opened up an internet service provider business right at the beginning of the internet. And I had about 6 or 8 employees. I was doing quite well, and I made the decision. I said,
baby.
I made a decision that I would not do the Republic. I gave it up. I said, I'm not going to do that ship. It ruined my life. I found that someone else, a Bill Cleary, a diver, had gone out there on a dive boat, retrieved an artifact, brought it in the Newark U.S. District Court in Newark, and filed a claim. And in fact, my mother was served with papers, and she called me up, and I said, well, what are the papers? She said, well, apparently I thought they were still living there, but I was back in school. And she said, someone's suing you over the Republic. And I read the coordinates. The coordinates were the published coordinates that you would find in any treasure shipwreck book. They weren't where the Republic was.
Right.
So I know I had him on that. But the point to being that if he hadn't sued me, I would have let him go and develop the Republic. And I would have come in saying, wait a minute, I contributed to the salvage. I found the wreck. He's working on my research. It's all my work. I'm entitled to 10% at least, 15% of what we thought is only $1 billion project, $100 million. Well, I could live on that, But I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. But once he sued me, I had to defend. This is what I'm saying. I could physically or mentally give up this project, and it will drag me back. I mean, I wasn't about to let 30, 20 years of my work go down the drain for someone suing me.
No.
Yeah, he wanted to get rid of me entirely. If he had just left me alone, he maybe he'd be wealthy today, but he had to drag me back. And once he dragged me back, I said, wait a minute, his coordinates are off. I said, let's lock this up. I hired another boat, went out to the location of Republic, pulled up another artifact, filed a new claim in Boston because they had closed my old claim, not for only for lack of activity,
Right.
Not with prejudice. He said they closed my case with prejudice. No, just lack of activity. So we opened up a new case. We consolidated the old case with the new case, and I ended up.
Yeah, but let me
eventually owning everything, owning the wreck,
Right.
owning the contents. We have a court order barring all future claims.
And
I'm in the best legal position as possible.
Right.
The point being, regardless of what I want to do, this wreck drags me back. So it's not as if I persevered. I made the conscious decision. The wreck had ruined my life. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm making a nice little income. I have a nice little business. Someone else finds it. They recover the gold. I'll file my claim.
But that's the thing.
It pulled me back.
That's what I'm trying to tell you is you can say that if someone else finds it, you're going to file a claim, but that doesn't guarantee you would win. This is the better way. You now own it outright. Everyone went, and I got to go back to Mel Fisher again. I apologize for doing that, but
no, it's all right.
Other people made claims on his find, and they wound up not getting anything.
Well, I had claims filed here. I mean, the U.S. government filed a claim. Paribas, the largest French bank, filed an intervention. I had competing salvors file claims. I mean, that's what happened. Once we defeated the U.S. government, the court said, well, there's no one standing. Do you want to own it? Yes, Your Honor.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say. You said that you would have let it go if you'd have fought it, but you might not have got anything out of that claim.
Yeah, but it ruined my life. It forced me to defend.
I know.
It forced
and
me
that's
to
another
defend.
reason why. That's another reason why you've put more than blood and sweat into this. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I want to see it pay off. I want to see it's more than just hard. It was more than just hard work for you. It was everything you just mentioned, and that's why I want to see it play off.
All right.
But we got to end this show.
Oh, I have so much more to talk about.
But
We'll have you back, man.
I'd love to have you back. I want to keep an eye on what goes on. I want you to use our page to advertise your.
I'm going to post the website up that you gave earlier, and then anything else you want to put out there, you put on the page.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think you're the wackiest, coolest dude around. And if I didn't get seasick in my own bathtub, I probably would want to come out on that boat with you.
I'd give you the invites. There you go.
And
you take some Dramamine, you'll all be set.
Oh, I'll be fine out there. Yeah, right. And we're talking out in the Atlantic, right? Yeah, okay.
Well, you get those glass flat days every so often.
Oh yeah, I'll bet. I'm sure. I can't even handle glass flat days.
He gets sick looking at the ocean.
Listen, we want a picture of it. But listen, I want to wish you the best of luck, and I really also want to wish you the best of safety, because we know with this risk what penalties can lie out there, or damages can occur. And I just wish you a lot of luck, and I really wish you a lot of safety. I may bust your chops and say you're crazy, but you know what? I gotta tell you, I'm behind you on this, man. I really want to see it happen for you.
Well, thank you. One minor point is the reason why it's now is all the new information's come about since 2017. Had two or 3 years for COVID, so the timing is we're now moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look for it, and I want to look forward to it. I'm hoping you put live cameras up there, because I love watching this stuff. I love watching the dives and what the show was great. I want to see another one even better.
We will.
And I want to thank you so much for being on our show. You really are one of the best guests we've really had, because you're kind of fun. It's just when you get going, you're worse than Frank when you get going, man. Hey, I can't even lasso you back in, man. It's like, but no, it really is. It's a great show, and I want to thank you. And we'll get if you start getting closer to June and you're getting ready to go out there, we're going to have you back on the show.
Absolutely,
perfect.
To wish you a good farewell.
Bon voyage.
Yeah, because you're cool.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Martin,
it was a
Bayerle,
pleasure. Always fun.
Listen. All right, so guys, folks, if you have, I'm telling you, I know you're not paying attention, but if you have not gone and seen the show $1 Billion Wreck, that's a great show, and you will binge watch it. I might even go back and watch it again, because there ain't nothing on TV for me to watch. And of course, I'm not going to watch reruns of Detective America, because this show just sucks.
I'll just take some videos of me and give them to you.
Frank,
watch them over and over again.
I was about to lose it. I thought it was your fault. I'm like, Frank, tell your fault, Frank.
It's been doing that, and you've got like 3 different tones that were going off the whole night.
The whole time, and I thought I was here. I'm thinking it was you. I couldn't wait to get off this show and yell at you for that. That's the best. So listen, I just want to tell one story before everybody goes, because this is funny as hell. And maybe next week we'll touch on the Lehigh Valley hunt, because we had such a great time.
Is it long enough for me to go take a meeting?
Go ahead, go take a meeting. So the Lehigh Valley hunt was awesome. We had a ball. So Andy Savage and his wife Charlene are the greatest people in the world. Mike Burns, Andrew, their president Petrocelli, and everyone from you know what? The people there are great. It's a seated hunt, and everybody had a ball, and everybody came away with some good things. But the one problem that arose was Michael Baumhoff was there, and this prick Baumhoff, I'm telling you, Baumhoff is the worst. So now listen, you see, he's breaking my stones, and he breaks my stones every day. So we're there, and it was the last raffle of the day. Well, me and Baumhoff are standing there going, last raffle, I never heard. We got to get tickets. So I run over as they called the first prize out of the raffle. I'm like, no, I still want to buy tickets. So I buy 6 tickets. It was 3 for $10. I bought $20 worth. I got 6 tickets. Well, Baumhoff was dragging his chin across the ground. Ooh, I didn't get to buy tickets. I mean, he was crying like a little girl who just lost her dolly. Okay, the tears are streaming down his face. I didn't get to buy a ticket. You know what? I ripped mine in half, and I said, "Here, these are yours." And I gave him 3 tickets. Right now. As soon as I hand him them tickets, right? As soon as I hand them, don't you know they call one of the numbers? And he wins. And he didn't even look at me. Dude, man, I'm telling you, like a dog that was late for dinner. He flew up to that table, picks out a big, nice big prize worth about $3,000 in redemption. And he goes back, oh, look what I won. Look at it. And that was it. And he wouldn't talk to me. And he left me be, and he was like that was it. That's my story. Okay, I didn't say it. No, and this I see. He said, Steve said, hold these for a second, and I did. And no. Listen, I'm the one telling the story, so whatever I say goes. Frank Baumhoff just left me high and dry after I gave him a winning ticket.
Wait a minute, Martin wants to know what size coin I want.
Listen, you're getting the 3rd one. We have. Is that funny? Steve's getting the 2nd coin. So Baumhoff, you're still in bad graces in my book. I hate you. And that's just the way it is. I give the guy a winning ticket. Do you believe that? I didn't win anything either. I didn't hit any other 50-50s. That was the only ticket that would have, or not 50-50s. I didn't win any other raffles. Tim Lynch, I saw him in the chat. It was great seeing him and his wife, Kathy. They are the best. I had a great day with them. I'd love to mention, I just want to mention everybody. But yeah, hanging out with Tim and Kathy, we had a bunch of laughs. I know they were recording it. We just had a ball. And but yeah, Baumhoff is yeah, he boned me as usual.
Yeah, we got a new part that's coming out for the Ugly Box. We're not going to get into it tonight. I'll explain a little bit. We got nobody next week. We got no guests next week.
Why don't we have Martin back on for?
Listen, we could have him. We could just record and run it for 3 weeks.
For 3, yeah.
KG and Ringy are coming on for a Christmas giveaway.
Yep.
December 1st. Rob Rizzo is coming on. We're going to have Greg Papello on. We're going to have D-Lick and the Note the Crew on very soon. We don't know the exact date yet.
I want Brandon and Brooke on.
We're going to have Brandon back on.
Well, let's try and get them.
Well, we'll have Brooke. Brandon can come if he wants.
Brielle.
Why are we calling her Brooke? That's my daughter.
I don't know. You know me and names. So look, I got to go to bed.
And we'll talk about the changes to the Ugly Box coming soon, guys. This is just a little change. It'll be. We're going to give away an Ugly Box. We'll talk about it next week.
Whatever we give away from now on, that he ain't. His name is not on the list anymore. He is forever banned from being on any prize wheel that we ever have because I can't stand them. Yeah, so Brandon's watching. Brandon, let's try and get you on next week. You and your daughter, we got to have an update with her. All right, so we're gonna really try and get you guys on next week. You guys are the best. And listen, I'm serious when I say I wish that guy luck, and I wholeheartedly wish.
I hope I want him to find every penny that he thinks is down there, brother.
You know what? Yeah.
And despite us breaking his balls, he is truly one of the most interesting guests.
You know what it is? I'll tell you. You know what it is? He's another one of these guys that is really, really, really smart and awesome. But I want to talk about the boat going down, the gold being there. Let's go get it. Let's find it. You know.
I get well. When I told him to tell the story, I thought I was hoping it was going to be a short synopsis of what he talked about.
I don't think there's any short synopsis.
My man is the best. He's awesome.
There's no short synopsis. It's really. I thought you were long-winded.
We what we need to do is have remember Jerry Lewis will have a Labor Day telethon.
Oh, geez,
and we'll
Martin
on.
Yeah. Or we go the opposite way and like they do at the Oscars, give them a little clock.
Music plays them off.
Yeah, you have so many seconds to answer. It's great.
Nah, my man's got a lot. Like you said, I guarantee you he could have did another hour. I guarantee you.
One?
At least, yeah, at least one. My man is the bomb, and I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see him set up.
That's another thing. Baumhoff was stealing all my shit off my table the other day. He stole the bumper, the legend. No, the legend bumper fit his triple score.
Yeah, they fit the triple score. It fit the triple score.
Yeah, I thought you took. Yeah, you were the one saying they didn't, but it fit.
Because that's what I was told.
I should have wrapped it around his goddamn neck. Is what I should have did.
I know they fit all the simplexes.
Yeah, well, I should wrap it around his neck. Freaking guy, and he don't even take me detecting anywhere. No, don't even take me detecting. Prick. All right, guys. Yo, I'm going to bed. Hit the button, for God's sakes, or I'm going to talk all night. Good night, everyone.
Hey, guys.
Next week, the Kowalskis. We're getting the Kowalskis next week. Get the Kowalskis next week.
Bye.
Next week.